Hey, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everybody. Welcome on into the Dragon's Den. My name is Digital Dragon, aka Luke. I am a 3D printing variety streamer here on Twitch. So welcome on in, everybody. Um, as you know, in the last few weeks, we've been working on our Annex Engineering K3 during the weekdays, and then another Voron 2.4 on the weekend. And both of those streams have now completed, and those machines are done and built. So last week we started work on a Micron, which is a Boron 2.4 kind of shrunken down into a 1515 size extrusion frame. It's a printer from the PrintersForAnts collection. Now it's not a V0 modified to a 2.4. It is literally a scratch built of a 2.4 shrunken down. There's two different versions. There's a standard Micron, which uses a 120/120 bed that you would get in a V0. And then there's the Micron Plus, which is a 180 bed that we're doing here today. And then on the weekend, we will be starting on a Trident 350 build that we will be working on. That's what we've got going in the next few weeks here moving. Hey, Zombie Hedgehog, how are you doing? Thank you. Happy Tuesday to you too. Welcome on in. Hopefully the stream looks a little bit better as well. I did go in, and now that I got everything hardwired up here for network connectivity, and I went back in and kicked the stream up to 1080p and 60 frames per second. So hopefully it should be a little smoother and cleaner now. And I'm going to fix that blinking in the back. That is a LED that's running at 50% power. So whenever you, on your LEDs for your case lights, you probably want to either run them at 0 off or 100 full bore. Anytime you try and vary it, whether it's 50%, 75%, or whatever, it does a PWM cycle, so it'll cause a flicker. So, hey, RNF Geared, how's it going, my friend? Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. So I'm running Brio Logitech Brio 4K cameras for the main camera and the workbench camera, and I've been having them drop down to 1080p rather than 4K. I'm sorry, I had them drop down all the way to 720 and 30 frames per second output, just simply because I was having bandwidth and a lot of drop frames. Well, come to find out that was an issue with just the wireless. So running a cable worked, and over the long weekend, I got up in the attic and ran a cable from near my router up into the Dragon's Den. I actually ran two. So I'll have one that came around to the desk that's feeding all the computing equipment on this side. And then I had the option of running a second one and mounting a 24 port switch up underneath like the center table here, and then direct connecting all of the printers versus running them on wireless, which will free up some of the bandwidth. Cool. Yeah, and the other thing too is on your mains powered beds, um, there is you can set a PWM cycle time. Here in the States, I believe it's like PWM cycle time, colon space 0. I think it's 0.1666. And then there's a different one for UK, and that's setting your PWM cycle time to be that 60 hertz that we use in the States. And that will keep your LED lighting, especially, from blinking. So if your house is primarily using LED lights, like I have here, if you don't do that, you'll notice it, and it'll start giving you headaches until you fix it. So, but moving on to the Micron build. So we've we made some good progress Thursday. We actually started this build on Tuesday, and we got about 30 minutes in, and we had pretty much we were putting M3 by 8 screws or M3 by 10, whichever ones, into our extrusions, prepping the frame rails when we lost power due to the storm. So we came back on Thursday and we have a frame. Got a frame, bed rails are in place, deck panels in place, den rails are in place, and we've got our Z drives and feet going. Now, one of the things that's a little bit different on the Micron, when you're doing a standard 2.4, you would put the frame together, then mount your Z rails. Well, because of the nature of these 1515 extrusions, you have to load nuts as you go. So we actually had to install the rails first, then put the frame together. And as we put the frame together, we had to put in our M3 nuts into our rails to be prepared for next step. Now, these frames or extrusions are similar to the LDO and Misumi extrusions, meaning the oops or after the fact nuts from LDO motors should work in these. Those are the square, the thinner square nuts that have a rounded edge on them that you can slide into the rail slots. There's a plastic piece that you can put in there, and then you basically slide the nut up on the plastic piece, which brings it tight to the top of the rail face. Those should work in this one because it's got a profile that will or should work with it. Try and show that to you. If your rail profile here, rather than having that rounded shape, is more of a plus sign, that will not work. So then it becomes really, really crucial that you preload your nuts ahead of time. Otherwise, you're going to be taking your frame partially apart to add additional. And so where we left off, we just finished with the getting the frame and the Z drives and the Z motors installed. So we're getting ready to start with the Z idlers. And you're going to see me jump back and forth between the two manuals. There's two different manuals, and you'll notice them by the color scheme. One was done in January of 2023. The other one was started in November of 2023. Neither one of them are fully complete. So we're going to go as far as we can, and then we're just going to have to hack it from memory of a 2.4 and make it work. So, which I think this will at least get us our gantry and belts going. So anything beyond that, panels, spool head, I think we've done that enough that we can get those. So let me switch over to the browser window and the right Windows. Let me solve that. There we go. And we get some anger idlers. And this is what we're going to be working on will be our angry idler, which are the Z tension for the Z belt. So I will set this down on the ground just briefly as we work on the idlers right up here on the tabletop. We grab an extra paper towel just to make it easier to be able to see things actually on my black work table. But we've got our four idler brackets. They're mirrors of each other. So one has the little notch going to the left. The other set of two has them going to the right. And then we've got our actual idler pieces, and those are the same for all. Got those laid out. And we're going to set these up and get them going. So we're going to need some M3 by 12 button head screws, M3 hex nuts. So which belts? You keep talking about the belt zombie. I have the belts on the motors to the Z drives. Um, just remove the motor, install the belts, and reinstall the motors. Like I said, I have the belts between the motors and the drives. I don't have the Z belt, like the vertical Z belts. And I couldn't understand if that's what you were going for, but we'll get there. Nothing in either one of the manuals is said to do that, but or struggle for a while. I'm used to struggling for a while because that's normally what happens when we do the idlers, right? The front idlers on the gantry. I'm sure I'll struggle with those again. So I got 4 M3 by 12 screws and 4 M3 hex nuts. And what we're going to do is just get these set up so your you've got your face, right? The M3 nut goes into the top of the, say, in the head. Your idler bracket, you'll see that it's notched and kind of an L shape at the top. Think about that coming into the back. And that's how that goes in there. And then we're going to put that M3 by 12 screw right up from the bottom into the M3 hex nut that we just. And this is going to become our tensioning mechanism. Now, what I normally do is I just get it so that the screw is right at the top of the nut, and then I let it down so I can pull it down. That's going to give me the most amount of adjustment on the belts. Okay, so that's how I normally set mine up. Well, interesting, Zombie, because like I said, neither one of the manuals I have has talked about running the vertical Z belts yet. So neither the old one or the new one has mentioned it. So, and I'm sure that that is the case. I'll just have to square that away when we get there. So, two prepped, do the other two prepped. Hey, Timor, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. And yeah, content. I agree with that. I'll agree with that. It's all content. We're going to have plenty of content coming up. Like I said, we've got this build, we've got the uh, Trident 350 build. We'll have our V0 rebuild into a V0.2. We're going to do some updates on my V0. And then we'll also do a couple of droid builds, maybe even a can't wait battle bot for my spouse. So the weird slider door, yes, I've built several of them because my two Vorons, my Trident, and my Zero G have them. So the weird slider door is where you put in your carbon, your activated carbon. Now, the thing to remember, and let me grab one of these. Okay. So this is the ribbed side. So the ribbed side faces out. You try and do it the other way, you're going to break your door. Ask me how I know. But in this way, it's real hard to get it started the first time. And my door just broke there. So that's the other thing that happens. But to get it started, I started up from the end and then I wind up using some tweezers to get up underneath the lip to kind of help roll that first piece down as I'm pushing up. But you really have to push like right from here. If you keep trying to push further down, you're going to snap your doors. You really have to push kind of right at the base to push that around and get it in there. It's very much, I'll say, a pain in the butt. And now I'll have to reprint that door at some point. Probably when I go to swap that out, the charcoal out is when I'll remember. Okay, we'll need our F20 or F623 bearings and some M3 by 20 button head screws. Get these, we'll need two, 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 and two more. M3 by 20 button head. That would probably be better. I'm sure somebody has made a modification for that. I'm actually getting ready to build a bento mini for the K3 and then a bento box for the Trident 350. So looking at this, you have your notch on the one side. So what we're going to do is whichever side the notch is not on is where the screw head is going to be when we do our bearing step. So you're going to make your rollers like we normally do. And then that's going to get sandwiched in here with an M3 by 20 screw coming from the side. And once again, the screw comes in the side that does not have the notch on the main colored piece. In this case, it's red. Then I drop it. And get used to seeing me drop these because we're probably going to do it a lot when we hit the front idlers of the gantry. And these will just screw in. And you're screwing into the plastic. So remember when you're getting to the end, you're just screwing in until you feel that slight tension change where you've hit the edge, no more. You don't want to compress this because you want these to spin freely. And if you continue to try and compress them, you'll basically strip the threads that you just cut into the one side and your pen can fall out a lot easier. Screw. Oh, no problem, Timor. In fact, Kit Skyfire, if you've got a link to the remix and wouldn't mind putting it in the Discord, I would appreciate it. You done? And once again, the notch is on the right side now, so we're going to come in from this side with the screw for these. I hope everybody is surviving through all the winter storms that we've been having the last week. Hey, Hybrid Robotics, welcome in. Aussie, welcome in. Okay, so that's our 4 idlers. Get those over to the side and see what's up next. Now we're going to install these on our printer, and the way they go, look, so our, going to do like this where we're front to back. Really, the easiest way to figure it out is which way are my rollers going down here. These rollers need to be going in the same way. So the rollers are going this way, which means my roller up top needs to be going that way. And then my notch is always going into the side. So this is going to go back there. That tells me that with my bed rails going side to side, I'm going to be looking at angry idlers, whichever side here. So I'll need to move 2 of my screws over. And I'm going to give you a little trick, and that's kind of line them up. Don't try and get them right here at the end. Line them up, get your screws started, and then push this over into the end. These are going to be some more of our M3x20 screws. Go through a few of these now. So, and I tend to try and install these screws one at a time too, because then that allows me to get lined up on one, get the screw started, and then I can move things around a little with the other one perfectly lined up. Yeah. So if you didn't get things, I'll say ordered from AliExpress or replacement parts coming in from Reality, Bamboo, or anybody like that that's in China, you're kind of stuck because they're out for a week with holidays. So, okay. So because I'm going to be sliding into this rail, then I need the other one where the notch is on the right hand. Don't live anywhere that palm trees won't grow. Um, well, palm trees can grow in a lot of places. Just make sure it's pushed all the way into that extrusion. Um, Good question, Hybrid Robotics. I'm not sure if they are or not. Sure if Artillery is a US company or not. I think they are, but I can't be 100% sure. And if you were talking about Reality and now Artillery, could you be referring to an Artillery refurb of a Creality box on or on eBay. Is that Artillery or Soval that does refurbs of Creality machine? I think it's Soval. Um, we're down to 38. It's getting cold. We had rain earlier today. Um, and I think they said the possibility of snow for some parts of North Carolina, but I think it misses us, where me and Mr. The Inner 3 V3KE. Is that the 4XZ version with clipper on it? Okay, yeah. So it's the ender wire. Um, yeah, that sucks. What's going on with it? Hybrid robotics. Okay, so it talks about doing the bed. Um, I don't put my beds on until right at the end, simply because one, it's added weight that we've got to move around, and granted, it's not going to be a lot of weight here. And two, it has cables, and those cables get in the way and they flop all over the place until you get your electronics in. So I normally wait until I'm mechanically done with the gantry and we've set the electronics in there so that when I do um the bed mounts, that I can run the wires directly down and cut them to length, because the bed wires are normally long and they kind of flop all over the place. And welcome on in, Holly 72. How's it going? You still have your bed heater? Oh man. Yeah, luckily I ordered a couple of those uh PEO, PEY, PE whatever beds. Just got a couple of different ones to try and play around with. So luckily they made it out. One of the other things I did was bought one of the Bamboo Lab hot ends that everybody seems to be putting into every other printer now, that I can play with and possibly try in one of these printers. How many printers have I built? Well, every single one up here. So there's two, four, six. Two ender wires makes 8. A core XY, or excuse me, an ender XY in the closet is 9. The salad fork is 10. I've got two rooks, makes what, 11, 12. A ender 5 converted to a 0G, 13. A ender belt makes 14. Another Voron 2.4 for Chewy makes 15. This will be 16. I've got a Trident I'm going to be doing, which is 17. So 2, 2, 4, 6. Who do we abbreviate? Yeah, I've done a few. Um, so one of my rooks I gave away to K2 Kevin at East Coast Rip Rap Festival, which is now 3D Printopia. And I've got 3 Prusa Mark IIIs. 2 of them been converted to bears, a heavily modified Ender 3, and a Flying Bear Reborn 2 that are over at Evil Diesel's house, about 10 minutes from here. We call it the Dragon Den Site B. So yeah, I've got a few printers out and about. So like it's to the point that I can't run all the printers behind me because I will blow the 15 amp circuit. So I'm going to have two dedicated 20 amp circuits added here so that all of my computer electronics that run, my desk and my streaming computer and stuff will run on the standard 15 amp house outlet sockets. And I'll have dedicated 20 amps for everything behind me. Hey, Royal Nomi, welcome on in. Yeah, just a few Aussie. Um, my Mrs. Dragon, my wife, was really mad when she came home from a trip and I had 6 printers sitting on the kitchen table printing. So I did take a little bit of grief over that. So next up, like I said, we're going to skip mounting the bed at this time, just simply because we'll do the bed at a later date. Makes it a little less cumbersome moving this printer around. Whoops, not that one, this one. And so the next up is going to be the gantry. And that's where the latest iteration of the manual just kind of goes to poof because it shows getting the rail ready and then nothing more. So we'll switch over to the older manual, which at least will get us through the gantry pieces. And it's going to tell us to get our linear rails mounted to the y-axis. I'm going to move this off the table for the time being. Now notice at this point it hasn't told us to run any belts still because we'll need to run those with the gantry in place. I do have I keep forgetting, I increased the resolution on this, which means everything over here gets smaller. So I did go ahead and reprint the nut holder, repopulate them, and just set them in here. So we will go through and get our linear rails set up on here, and then we will use our jigs to get them in the proper place. Right now, we're going to start just by attaching the linear rails up here so that we can then go and put them in the proper place. And all of my linear rails, they're Ivdino or whatever. I have no idea. We'll always call them generic Chinesium rails. There wasn't a bit of oil or grease on these. Not a drop. They were dry as a winter morning. So they did get wiped down with alcohol and then they did get lubricated. While I was watching, I believe that was a stream, I was watching Creatix Brit interviewing Van Oaks Props. So we're going to sit down here and we're going to use our, what was that, 2x6 socket head cap screws. And it shows doing every other one on the manual. My plan is to do every single one. We'll see how far I get. If I need to supplement with some screws from my own stash, I will. And M2s do require your 1.5 millimeter socket driver. And all I'm doing is getting these started. I'm not going to tighten them down just yet until I get them in the final location. I just need to get my screws in here and get them started. And you'll notice that I am not using any Loctite. That's because there is a printed part down there. And Loctite will interact with ABS and PLA. In this case, this is an ABS print that the nut holders. So, and I'm not sure if a standard set of the aluminum backers you would get from like LDO Motors would work on these or not. Maybe if it was the 120 size, they would. But how are you feeling, Royal Nomi? Are you able to get up and move around a little bit easier today than you were last week? Well, the problem was is she was traveling, so she came home from one trip, and then she was going on another trip, and I had them up on the table printing Toys for Tots. So I told her that I would finish my Toys for Tots prints and be done before she got back from her next trip, which was going to be the final trip for the year. So that's what I did. So when she came back from her final trip for the year, the kitchen table was usable again so that she could do puzzles. And we've been doing puzzles. So we spent the break working on, or the winter or Christmas break and stuff, working on puzzles. All right, cool. But moving slowly is still progress. And right now, that's basically what I want to see is that, or hear is that you're making progress. So that's good. I know I go back and see the eye doctor tomorrow to well, not to determine, but to make sure everything's still going on or well with the eyes since the surgery, and to see if I need to get a new prescription now that I've had cataract removal surgery. So, and I am going through and loading up all of my screws. So we need to be careful that we don't lose our carriage off of our rail. So that's one that's done. Now we'll do the other one, get this fully populated and loaded up here. Hey, Creatix Brit, how are you doing? You're doing the dishes and listening. Okay. Gotta get them chores done. I understand that. So we are continuing on our Micron build, and Modlight, welcome on in. I didn't see you sneak in there. Shenanigans too, welcome in. So we're just chatting as I am installing my linear rails, and this is for the gantry. Our frame is now built, and we've got our D-idlers installed and everything, and the Z motors, Z drives, so all that's done. We're starting to work on the gantry. So because this is basically a shrunken 2.4, this will have the Voron 2.4 flying gantry. And yes, this is a Micron Plus build. So this is the 180, 180, 180 sized build. And for all of my peeps out here, such as Zombie and Shenanigans and Brit and everybody that streams, um, I apologize that I have not been online a lot lately and listening to everybody's streams, Two Wolf Design as well. So I'm just been busy and getting back into work, and we're having to do performance reviews and stuff like that, so I haven't been able to jump on as much as I wanted to. So I do plan on getting back into the swing of things though, now that um, the holidays are over and I'll say things are getting back to normal now, back to work, getting back into the routine. You don't expect anybody to watch your stream. Well, if you weren't streaming so late there, Zombie, and I kid, it's perfect time for you. I get it. We stream when it works, and you're also. I was going to say you're also West Coast. You're not West Coast. You're East Coast. So you are streaming kind of late, but there are people up at that time. So, and of course, you're doing some really cool things dealing with the Voron tap chain. So that's really. I'm sitting here thinking like, do I need to when I rebuild my 2.4, is that something I need to make provisions for? Is it's only a 300, so I can't do the major 6 tool head there, but I will have a black belt. I will have the trad rack on the K3, and I will have the um, ERCFA, at least a 6 carriage ERCFA that comes with the Trident kit. I'll have some options there. Yeah, you feel like you run on West Coast time? Yeah. So we've got our rails just loosely installed on there. We're going to set they want us to do the x-axis valve, get that going. That's going to be our next smallest size rail here. So, and the x-axis is done with M3 screws, so there will be no nut holder here. So, just for grit. Both need to be exact. Yeah, it shows us how to install doesn't give us the, okay, no worries. So one thing that it doesn't mention is we've got printed tools for the Y. So this should fit on the extrusion and enable us to center the linear rail on the set extrusion. And obviously, these may be made for not this side. So what is the rook that has linear rod? Every rook has linear rods. A bugaboo uses linear rods for the X and Y, but a bugaboo is not a rook. So it needs to be centered, and these, while it'll help center it side to side on the rail, it doesn't center it from end to end. So I'm going to have to do some measurements real. These are, how long are my rails? Rails are 65. Okay, so that's centered end to end. Yep, I'll agree with that. So this is centered end to end. So what I'm going to do is set these down on there. That's going to center it side to side as well without moving them. Now I can tighten this up. We're going to start from the center. So 15 holes in here. So 8 is the center. Then we just start moving out from. Hey, Daddy Wazzy, how's it going? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try and line these up and get my rails trying to visually line them up. I know it'd be 23 millimeters from the end. That's now centered end to end. Now I just need to keep it in place. Second. These on there to keep it aligned center wise. Start locking it down just like we did the last one. You're talking about the 8 millimeter rods on the Z-axis. Are you looking for how long those are supposed to be? Because I believe they were 200, 150 or 200 millimeters. Okay, so both of these are centered side to side on the extrusions and end to end on the extrusions. Now we're going to come in here for our X axis. It could also be centered. And we're going to use M3 nuts. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 11 of these. I am going to continue the trend of populating all holes on these rails. So Westery is filling waters right now. Okay. Four, five. Okay. We'll go ahead and get these extras put away so I don't knock them all over the place. 'Cause I know me. No, she actually lives on a farm, so she has to go and water the horses and stuff like that. Oops, I'll need this a little bit. Okay, one coffee down. So what I'm going to do is just try and get get these kind of aligned in the right spot. Not worrying about the actual spacing on the extrusion yet. We just want to be able to get the rail on here and get the screws started. Then we'll worry about getting things properly aligned. Once again, I don't have any of the bump stops on here, so we got to be careful that we don't um, screw something up and send this off the end of the rail. So we want our M3 by 8 socket head screws. It does show socket heads there. And I don't have any M3 by 8 socket heads. They just gave me a ton of M3 by 8 button heads. So what I'll do, because this is a linear rail, I'll just grab from my stock. And this is technically metal to metal, so if you wanted to, you could go through and put some Loctite on these. I guess on the Z-rail, if we're going to be running tap and stuff like that, probably wouldn't be a bad idea. This is a Formbot kit from AliExpress. Okay, so instead to use M3 by 8, I just tightened that one up. And I'm not sure if you can see the play that's still there. That M3 by 8 did not tighten up appropriately. That tells me that this really needs M3 by 6s. The 8s are going to be too long to provide a secure connection here, which means I will have to switch over and use button heads because I don't have any M3 by 6 socket heads. Or add some 3 by 6s from my stash. All right, Monlight, take it easy. Thanks for being here. Hope you feel better soon. Hope you get to feeling better soon. Yeah, that's definitely what we want. This will clamp down, so we need to switch over to M3 by 6s. Get full engagement without bottoming out. Nice land, Royal Nomi and Random Tinkerer. How are you doing? You are doing well. You had a good and restful holiday season. I know I was happy to have an extra long weekend this weekend for Martin Luther King Day because after um, being off for 2 weeks, going back into work, felt like I needed an extra long break to deal with it. So the colors here are Fusion Filaments ABS 2.0. They have a 1.5 and a 2.0. Red Dwarf and KVP Fluorescent Blue. So black frame. Now, what I need to figure out is 2020, 40, 20, 20 as well. Do I trying to look and see if I've got a 1515 guide from the um, salad fork build that I can use to get these rails centered because there was no printed guide for this rail. So it's quite possible that I've got a rail alignment tool from our other build, from the salad fork build, that will work, which is why you keep your extra prints from previous builds, or especially your alignment tools, because that way, hopefully, you don't have to keep reprinting them. Got one. Let's do this again. Those two are the smaller ones. Okay, well, that kind of sucks. Why do I only have one? Where did your brother or sister go? Oh, darn it. All right, we'll have to get a little creative. So our directions said that we would have 20 millimeters on each end. Use the Z guide. There's no official tool to center them. I'm talking about centering them on the rail this way. Should be a standard 1515, was this MGN 9? So and this is looking at a 120 build as well. Looking at this, I can do 15 millimeters on each side, basically to center it. but I can't do 20 on each side and have it centered. So one side, going to put that down like that. Come back here, go at the center. This gets us tightened down and as best as I can, centering it side to side using just one of these. And we got it centered edge to edge as well. So, yay me. Hey, Ronnie Mac, welcome on in. Um, you want to do a printer build one of these days? Wish kits weren't so darn expensive. Yeah, I mean, you can. So this is a Formbot kit. This is I think it's like $600 kit. It's a little bit bigger than a standard V0. Um, you can also find kits on sale. Like DFH had several kits on sale, like our salad fork, around the holiday time. You might have to add some more to that, but it gets you the vast majority at a lower cost, and it's still some quality components. You can do some builds like a Rook or a Bugaboo that are relatively cheap and inexpensive. Because you're going to be self-sourcing parts, you can pick the quality of your parts for the different parts of the machine as well. Hey, Stephen Poole, welcome on in. Um, so you say, do they ship longer rails? So the guide appears to be written for a 120, the standard micron size, and this is the 180 build. So some of the rails and some of the measurements may be a little bit different between a 120 and a 180 build. Okay, so we've got that done now. We're going to take our X gantry and just set it aside. Put this back down here out of the way. And we're going to start building our gantry. So you're going to have your A drive on the back right, B drive back left, idlers at the front. Kind of gives you an idea of how everything's going to lay out. It wants us to start with some heat set inserts. So let's get our stealth press up here. Again, turned on. At least 4. Roll through here real fast and see if there's any more we're going to need to put in. It's not looking like. Scroll back up here. Then we'll need to get our heat set inserts going. Now these will be um, our accent parts, kind of like the Vorons. They use a Micron logo versus the little Voron heart in the manual to show. And so we're going to put one in this raised edge, and then the other one goes at the bottom. And you can tell the top and bottom. The top has kind of the recessed well for the screw head, which makes the other side the bottom. So we'll need to put in a heat set insert at the bottom, being mindful to try and get it straight up and down without burning yourself. Be mindful of the one you just put in so you don't stick your hand right where it's at and burn yourself. That one's done. Okay, both of those are done. And we checked, and those are the only heat sets we need to do for a little while. So we'll move that back off there so we don't burn ourselves. And then I like that it tells you to put heat sets in and then immediately tells you to start doing other parts so you can give those a chance to cool down. It's going to be the bag of parts that we're going to be dealing with. So I'm just going to get a few pieces out. Okay. So we're going to be working on the A and B idlers. And it looks like we're going to be using one of our thicker pieces first. So we're just going to kind of look around and try and figure out which thick piece and which orientation. Right here. That looks like a thick piece. Okay, it looks like thin piece. So M3 by 30 socket head screw, some M3 shims and our bearings. I know I'm going to have two idlers, so I'll get a couple of those out. Grab our F23 bearings. Need one set for each. Right now we've got screw, bearings, and our M3 shim washers. Two of these. Okay, so M30 through the longer of the two slots. And we're going to build our bearing stack, which is washer, bearing side down, or excuse me, flange side down, flange side up, another washer, and then one of our corresponding thicker pieces that has keyed pieces that will, so when I say keyed pieces, so you've got edges that are raised and other edges that are slotted that will align with the slots and raised edges in the other part. So that's where I was talking about raised and now we've got that. Now we do the loving flip like this. We need to take our give me a second. Make sure we're flipped in the right way. So where your screw is coming out of right now is going to be the top. So you want to make sure that you've got the top, not the bottom piece of an idler. And that when you slot it in, the bumped out piece is facing towards this end. Makes sense. And this is where it gets fun because you've got to kind of put this in, keep your tension on it as you pop your screw out so that your bearing stack doesn't shift and go anywhere. Get your idler piece over the top of it. Put your screw back in from the top. Hope that everything still lines up and you don't lose your bearing stack. Which, that is the first time out of all bearing stacks I have done on any size Voron type printer where I haven't dropped bearings all over the place. And once again, you're snugging it up. You're not trying to crank it down because you need your bearings to rotate. Okay. Now we're going to have an M3 by 35 and an M3 washer. So a little bit longer. And another of our M3 washers. And this is going to go in from the front of the part. So where our micron symbol is, oops, come in from the front here. Going to go into our accent piece and it's going to screw through that accent piece. So got our heat set insert there. We're going to screw completely through that and into the red part. Push this all the way back. You want to keep your idler all the way pushed back and then just bring this up until it snugs up right against the front. Once again, now you're fully set and you've got the full amount of tension that you can pull on these because as you pull this screw, your bracket's going to move forward. That's how you'll tension your belts. Am I using the beta gantry or stock? I printed the 1.2 parts. So if that's the beta gantry, then I'm building the beta gantry. Okay. Thank you. So that was the one side. Let me just look through it. Then they want to do the A motor, A drive bearings, B drive motor. Okay, so okay, A and B idler. So it tells us to do both basically. So once again, we'll take our M330 screw, the longer of the two slots, screw in. We'll do a M3 shim washer, bearing flange side down, bearing flange side up to make our roller, then another washer, then our other part, lining that slot up. Now, what I did the last time, it seemed to work, was I moved our bearing all the way towards the front of the part, take our other idler piece, same way, get it put in place so that our um, locking piece is going to line up. Now you'll notice it's in the opposite way. So the screw's still going to come in from the bottom rather than the top there. That's the only way that your screw from the front is going to align because it's offset. Okay. So we get that there. We hold some tension and push that screw down from the top. Pull it out. Trying to keep the tension and don't flip it from a vertical. Trying to line this. Bring our screw back in from the bottom. And now we can tighten this back up. And it should move in that slot easily. If it's not moving in the slot, it could be that you tighten this too much. So I just remove that tension some so that it can slide back and forth easy. Okay. And then M3 by 35 with a screw. And I love that this actually still shows the Voron idler symbol or the Voron logo. Push your idler all the way to the back so that when you bring your piece or your screw all the way in, all you're doing is just snugging it right up to the print. And then you're done. Any more and you're going to start, I'll say, pre-tensioning, pulling this forward as you tighten it. So there's our two idlers done. Now we're going to start working on our motors. And we need to look for our A drive. Now our A drive, the right-hand side, looking at our parts. Yep, looks like it's this one. So we'll need our A drive motors, which these are our thicker NEMA 14 motors. These are the actual Moons motors, and they are 1.8 degrees and 1.8 amp motors from Moons. So we're going to put these in. And we want our, let's say we want our motors kind of facing the outside of the printer. So the longer edge is going along the back, and this is going to be your shorter extrusion making up the rear. And your shorter edge of your piece here is going to be going forward and making your Y rail. So this is the back corner, and that's kind of where you want your motor wires to be going, because that will allow for the routing of your motors straight down. Now let me think. No, we want them pointing to the inside. This is a 2.4. We want them pointing towards the inside because they go in the cable change. It's the trident that goes down the sides. So we'll get this aligned, and we're going to use an M3x6 button head screw in this rear back corner. And this, I don't believe, is the, we double check. It'll be this one because it should have a recessed screw hole. And the other one did. So it's this one. So once again, M3x6 button head screw. That on there, making sure that you feel like you're pretty square on the motor and everything lines up. The other three holes. We need to put our GT2 16 tooth pulley on there. And we do want to get some Loctite on these grub screws. Do not want your grub screws coming loose. It will lead to all kinds of interesting little noises that you'll spend countless hours trying to track down. Yeah, we'll check the fit of all the washers just to make sure if we need to add an extra washer, we'll add one. If we don't, we'll take it back out. Should be easy enough to tell. I'm just going ahead and getting both of these set up while I had it out. Did give me an extra grub screw, so that's always nice of them. Okay, and we're going to set this up with the larger portion with the set screws lower. And yeah, and it says basically get it in there, but don't tighten it down finally. So we're just going to set it in there. I'm going to line it up basically with the top for now. And I'm just going to move the initial set screw against the flat. just to hold it in place. We'll align it once we get our pulleys and belts. The next step would be the A drive upper with the end stops. That would be the part that's got the cutout and a couple of holes there to align for an end stop. Now, I don't know if they've got it pre-wired. Let me check through all the electrical pieces that they provided in here. If it's pre-wired, we'll go ahead and install it now. If not, we'll have to do some wiring to create the end stops. Oh, that says AC parts, so I'm assuming this is all the 110 stuff. It looks like a CAN bus wire. V-motor wires. I see a wired end stop. See a couple of them actually. So this is the Y end stop. So very nice that we've got the Y end stop already soldered and pins crimped over. That's pretty nice. So we want to get this set in here. This has the flange in it. So your wire needs to go through that slot. I'm not sure if yeah, that's not going to fit through. So we're going to have to depen it, run the wire through, and then add the pins again. But at least it was made for us. So that was nice. Looks like we have a X end stop in here as well that's been crimped to size to work with the full head wiring. Clicky PCB. Nice. Yeah, we do have pre-made wiring harnesses in here, which is pretty cool. Saves me from having to do some of it. Exactly. I can depend things pretty easy. Now, here's the thought. I was not planning on doing Clicky Probe or the ZN stop, and I was just planning on going with Boop. In fact, I think I have all the parts printed for Boop already. So here's a question for you guys. Do we install the standard end stop and Clicky and do a base printer build, or do we immediately go to Boop like we did on the salad for all of my other Vorons? Because quite honestly, I've never done Clicky and I've never done the actual ZN stop on any of my printers. Wires need to go through that small opening. It'll go through with the connectors on. Time. Oh, okay. So wires go through holes. Yep. And interestingly, the way that they show this going in there is say like this. And the only way that works is if our pins go up like that, which isn't going to be done. So obviously we'll go the opposite way. Really doesn't matter. It's an install. Kind of weird that they have them pointed down like that. Normally, I just either trim the pins down a little bit or I will actually bend them towards that. But we'll go with what they've got. Um, M2 by 10 self-tapping as normal. Um, so nope, I'm going, believe it or not, I prefer standard end stops on X and Y. Um, and I don't use the end stop pod because I normally go with a some type of tool head board. And then oh, like why is that not going to work? Because they are Phillips head. We'll give this one shot. I really hate Phillips head M2 by 10s. Really prefer the um, X heads. Something about trying to tap screws with heads that are prone to strip. Um, but yeah, normally on my builds, I think the LDO kit, because it's got a full cable run all the way up to the toolhead board, it's got a standard toolhead board on it. I did use the XY pod on it. All my others are running um, tap and a CAN bus. So they are actually um, English. They're actually running the Y back at the motor and an X going up to the tool head board. That's rewired and the plug's back on it. We're in shape here with where we were at. You have fallen in love with not running wires. Well, yeah, and I mean, sensorless does work. Sensorless definitely does work. I am running sensorless on several systems. In fact, the K3 is running sensor. But it's a balancing act because speed, voltage, all are going to play into your sensorless homing. So if you change voltage, by default, you're going to change the amount of power you're hitting it that end stop or that the end of your travel with, and it's going to change your sensorless homing. Speed will do the same thing because you're moving mass faster into it. So anytime you change voltage or speed in homing, you're going to need to adjust your sensorless homing settings and your stealth thresholds. I don't know what I just knocked over, but I knocked something over. Oh well. Okay, so the top now goes, well, yeah, the top we're going to install M3 by 25 button head cap screws, and then we'll start building our bearing stacks on top of it. A couple of these, and we're going into, that's one. So all the way on the right, skip a hole, then there. So that's where our two M325 go to. And now we're going to start building our bearing stacks. So we're going to need our M3 shim washers, which here, do those out there. We're going to need some more of our bearings. Get a few of those ready. Okay, and looking at it this way, we're going to start on this side and do one bearing stack. So washer, flange side down, flange side up, and another washer. Now on the other side, bearing stack. Washer, flange side down, flange side up, washer. That completes one bearing stack. Need to do a second bearing stack, so we're going to put another washer. That's two washers between these two bearing stacks. Flange down, flange up, and another washer. Double check. Washer underneath, washer, two washers between the stacks, one washer on the top. Okay. So now we're going to take this and join it to our motor, making sure that we line the parts up as appropriate. Come on. Over. And if we've got these lined up right, now it talks about doing the other M3 by 25 socket head cap screws. Button heads. Now, it didn't tell me to actually tighten those two down, but I'm pretty sure that we tighten these two down to give the initial squish on the bearing stacks. And you're tightening these into plastic. So do not give it all the ugga-duggas. You're just snugging it up because you need your printed parts or your pulleys to still be able to twist and turn. We're just snugging things up to hold the parts together. And I will say I'm running into an issue where the leads on the leads for my end stop are actually touching the motor face. So that we've got to keep an eye on. We may wind up having to take this back apart and take this back apart and basically resolder these if they become too bent. We'll see. But we'll keep an eye on them. So M3 by 25s. Go down the other 3 slots, and these are going to attach to the motor directly. Hey, Tactile, what's up, my friend? Welcome on in. Um, so Y normally isn't feasible, but the X definitely is feasible. And then you'll also have the why is language um X stays there, the Y normally goes down and goes in with the umbilical. But you'll also have whatever sensor you're using, whether that's clicky or tap or what have you, going up to that board, your probe. Um, okay, so this is our A motor with our end stop done. Does have the flange side, so this will be the gland for our CAN bus cable that'll come down through here. Our x-axis or our end stop will pick up with that and go in through our um, end stop or our cable chain. I'm just going to wrap this around the motor for now. Let's talk about aligning the drive pulley. We can do that now as well. So looking at the back, you're going to have one pulley over here, two on this side, and pretty darn close to being. Go down just a little bit. Rotate this around so I can get to it. And I had only tightened up on the flat. So I just need to get our pulley aligned, tighten up on the flat, bend it some, tighten up on the other side, and we'll have alignment. So one motor done, and next motor. Now there is one other thing I got to be aware of. So that's the end of my 623 flange bearing. I only have one left, one set of bearings left. However, I did see I've got tooth pulleys. So I'm wondering, even though it was telling me to do bearing stacks in a couple of places, if they expect me to do tooth pulleys. So in a few places with this kit. So B motor, take our other motor. We're going to take our bottom piece. We're going to look at the orientation it shows us, which is this orientation. It's going to go, and once again, our motor is going to go towards the long edge, not the short edge. So our motor wire comes out on the long edge, which will mean our M3x6 goes along back here in the little depression. Grab one of our M3x6s. Second Z lithophane. Get that installed. Our pulley is now going to go with the uh, the belt portion facing down and our set screws towards the top. We're going to do like we did before, kind of line this up, and we're just going to tighten against the flat for the time being. Just going to hold the pulley in place so it doesn't go anywhere, and we'll work the rest of it here in a minute. Now we'll take our other piece, and we're going to take two M325 button head screws. Once again, one all the way in the corner, skip a hole in the next one. Okay. Flip these over. Yeah, bearing stacks are definitely better than pulleys, so that's what we're going to continue to go with. So on this side, we're going to put one down and flange side down, flange side up, and another washer. Now, what I'm going to do is give me 1 second. I may have some 623 flange bearings. And it wouldn't be because I erroneously ordered flange bearings not once, but twice instead of non-flange bearings. It would not be that at all. So we're going to put a washer on, flange down, flange up, another washer, and that's one stack. Another washer. We'll have two washers between the two bearing stacks here. Flange down, flange up, and another washer. And that gives us our two bearing stacks. It shows us flipping this over and sticking it on top. I'm going to say it's going to be easier to let gravity do my bidding and put it on there this way. So that I don't lose my bearing stacks in the process. And then once again, we're going to screw these down, and we're screwing into plastic. So don't throw ugga-duggas in there. This is just holding things in place and becoming the hold down between these. In fact, this one can actually go in at all. Those are lined up. Everything's still moving. So now we'll come in with our M3 by 25s for the motor. So that's what these are. So these are the pulleys with the press fit. These are the M3 pulleys that came with the kit. I didn't have enough F623 bearings, flange bearings that came with the kit, which meant they expected me to use these in some places. I don't. I think at most I only use these at the X Gantry. There's one place where you use those. on a normal Voron kit, but they're the bigger versions anyhow. Yeah, it makes sense to use flanged bearings along the back side of a belt and tooth bearings on the tooth side of the belt. Um, Nice and tight. Bearings are still moving. And once again, we're going to line up our pulley, finding our flat, undoing our set screw on the flat, dropping this down to line up motor pulley with our bearing stem. Then tighten it down, flat, and then the other side. And we'll have one one stack motor pulley, double stack, and this lower stacks in the motor pulley line up. So that's our B side, left side, A side, right side, and our two idlers. We clean some of this stuff up. And what's up next? Start building the X joints. So set this stuff over here. X joints. Yeah, the oversized tooth pulleys are good. Using them where you don't really need them, especially the M3 size. I have literally seen these things explode and crack in half. I don't know what the quality of these are, but yeah, I much prefer the flange bearings. And as long as it's showing me doing bearing stacks, I will be doing bearing stacks and making up the difference with my own flange bearing. M3 by 25 button heads again. Need two of these. Yeah, it lasts about 5 minutes, especially under tension. Gonna be this one, and it looks like we're going in the front two. The front two. The first two that aren't depressed or screw heads, so go in there, flip it over, and we're going to do bearing stack. So we will need our shims back out and flange bearing. PEI magnet while you wait. Okay, I didn't realize there was a PEI magnet. You mean a magnet for your PEI sheet? Okay, so we're going to basically build two bearing stacks. They're just at different heights. So washer, flange side down, side up, washer, and then other side is washer, flange side down, flange side up. Sure that they are set that way. And Now you're going to tell me to do heat set insert. Man, I tell you. Okay. While I'm here, let me go ahead and get the other two set, and then we'll move things around and rearrange so that we can do our heat set. Hey, Pete, welcome on in. Washer, flange down, flange up, washer, other side, washer, flange side down, flange side up, and another washer. All right, now that those two are done, go and get our heat set insert press up here. Grab our heat sets. And put in a couple heat sets. Hey, Nick, welcome on in. How's it going tonight? This isn't a normal Gantry stack config from the Gantry I built. It told me to do a normal Voron stack config. We'll see. I'm following the manual. The manual's got mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes, and then we'll fix them. That's what we do. So looks like these two holes here will get our heat sets. Do one on for these two on this side, and then two on the other side. And then we'll get back to building. And note, at this point, it has not told me it actually built my gantry. And normally you'd have put your X and Y and A motors and stuff together by, or your U shape would have been together by now in a normal Voron build. So, like I said, we're going to follow the order of the manual, or manuals, until they both give up the ghost, because the newer version of the manual ran out before we started work on the gantry. We switched back to the January version of the manual. In January 2023. So we'll keep going and building. Just isn't that attractive. Steel, on the other hand, yeah. Yeah, batch building makes a lot of sense. And that's why I said it would have been great at the beginning if they said, okay, we're going to work on the XY gantry. Install the heat sets on these pieces and these pieces. That way they have time to cool while you start building things up. Because now I'm to the point where I actually need to install these, but I need to let them cool a little bit. Otherwise, the heat will creep up the screws, and or people can get burned. So We're just going to chat for a second, let that cool down. Let me grab some coffee. And by the way, I just saw my little thing pop up about the stealth press. Zombie, I did publish the shirts, so you should be able to get shirts now on the site, on the merch store. For whatever reason, I kept looking at the link today, and I don't know why it only shows the 2 coffee mugs. It doesn't show the stickers. It doesn't show the shirts. I don't know why it's only showing the coffee mugs. I may delete that whole thing out and re-add. I don't know why it's only showing those 2 things out of the merch. Okay, drinking some coffee. So heat sets are in and they're cool enough. So this one and this one. So this one does flips over and goes on this one. So I'm going to take this. Where is this? Seriously? I don't know why this is visually confusing me as far as how it's going on. Another. Apparently, I'm missing. But yeah, batch building does make sense, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of long time Voron builders will tell you go through the manual and read it. Now go through the manual and add any heat set inserts as you look through the manual for the second time. Then the third time through, that's when you go in and do your assembly. Those there, those like be that way. There, yep. And my holes are nice and good and tight. No comments from the peanut gallery. Yeah, we have mugs with and without the digital dragon, with the logo with and without the digital dragon, stickers with and without the digital dragon, And we've got shirts in black and white with the Digital Dragon logo and Digital Dragon 72 underneath it. All right, that's done. I'll get the other one prepped, and it goes on there as well. See how painful this is for me from a mental standpoint to get this one. One goes here. I start worrying there, thinking, "Oh crap, I got the washer out of alignment." Nope, that one went in. Hey, Bionic, how's it going? We got Nick and Bionic. Yeah, and that's why I've got my tools sitting up here. So I've got my two different style of tweezers, a blade, and a um, rather big deburring tool. And then I get all of my drivers sitting up here in the right order. And you'll see me occasionally like, okay, let me start. I got too much stuff on the workbench. Let me put it away. And I do need to do a massive cleanup again of the bench stock. Massive. Hey, sis. Mister from another mister. How's it going, bro? Or how's it going, sis? I said, bro. Okay. So we got those in there and we got our heat sets. Now we need to do our M3 by 35s into both of these. Didn't do beforehand. And those initial M3s that we built our bearing stacks on, the reason that we're adding additional screws in here is because they're just threaded into plastic. They're basically just guides, right? So we need something going into the plastic that will provide a better, or something going into the heat sets, provide a better connection between these two parts and really makes them one part. That's what these are doing. You get everything watered? And how are the horses, the doggies, my little Mia? How is everybody? Okay, so those are done. What's up next? The Y end stop needs this little printed part to make sure it gets hit properly. Should be installed with an 8 millimeters from the end of the extrusion and gets installed on the opposite side of the MGN 9C rail. This is our MGN 9C rail. So it's going to be on this end, 8 millimeters in, and thought that was a different part, so it's probably sitting in one of these bags. Yep, there it is. Good thing it was an accent piece. This will be an M3x8. M3 X nut and an M3x8 button head screw. A drumstick ice cream and a screamin' Sicilian pizza. Really, Westery? Thought you was eating healthy. We'll get that aligned on there, and we need 8 millimeters. So there, pinched a little bit. We'll double check that measurement. Split 8. R. And tighten that down. There's that. Yeah, is the ice cream warming you up? Need coffee. Warm you up and wake you up. Okay, so we got the end-stop extender installed. And now we're going to install our X rail on the XY joints. So the joints goes on this side, and goes on this side. So the Y rail mount goes on the outside. The rail will come in this way, and the rail is going to be facing, say, towards you. So in essence, this piece is becoming your Y end stop. And we're going to go ahead and get both of these put on there. Y end stop on the back. And there's our X-ray. Now, it says don't tighten the X-axis all the way. It'll be done later, and that's where we'll derack the gantry. So we need 2 M3x8 button head cap screws at the top, going into M3 nuts, obviously, that we will have to load in there because it didn't tell me to load any nuts. There's those, and the M3x20 socket head cap screws going in from the bottom. Need 2 of those. So 6 fasteners, which means we'll need 6 of these. Pop the side off. We'll need 4 at the top and 2 at the bottom. And Don't know which one you want to start off with first. We're going to start off with the bottom ones because that's now where I have it set up at. Thank you, Westery, for the resub. I appreciate it. M3 by 20 screw in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten it to make sure that I did get to the nut. And then I'm going to undo it a quarter turn. That'll still let me move it around some while making sure that I got it into the actual M3 nut. Move the other one over. How you guys doing? And Westery One just gifted a tier 1 sub to Royal Nummy. Well, thank you so much, Westery. You are so kind, sis. And sis, I'll tell you the same thing that I was telling everybody earlier. I did publish the shirts. So if you saw the shirt that I was wearing last Thursday, those shirts are now up live on my merch store. I have both black and white. So bottom's done. Now we'll come in here and work on doing the top here. And we'll just do these one at a time and we'll get them started. And back them off quarter turn so we'll be able to get them move the or derack the gantry a little bit later. Guess I should probably do a mouse pad. Well, the good thing is doing the Micron build kind of gets me set up and ready for doing the E0 rebuild. Okay. Our X gantry is ready to go. Yep, bang merch, bang merch. Thanks. Yeah, I wore it on stream and I'll wear it on stream again Thursday. I need to go ahead and get another one. I just have black and white right now. I need to figure out and decide if I want to use a different color as well. So what do we have here? Belt clamp. So note, only the top belt clamps are installed at this time. Only the top belt clamps are installed at this time. Okay, so we're going to take our X, put it off to the side there. We'll have our Y rails, and the Y rails, the linear rail itself goes on the underside, and your idlers go towards the inside. So this juts out to the inside of these parts. So what we'll do is we'll slide this on here. I'm going to push it all the way back. We'll get a couple of M3 nuts in here and get our M3 12 screws through the top with our little belt clamps. Then we'll move it into into proper location, which in this case is going to be flushed right up against the front of the extrusion. And our belt clamps will all be the same. They'll have the little angry eyes on them, and you want to make sure that the mouth or the open portion is facing away. So your idler's on the inside, your belt opening will be on the outside. So this will go on there, and then we'll put in our M3 by 12 screws, get everything started, and then we'll line them up right at the end of the extrusion. The other thing you'll notice is it's got a slight indentation on one side, and that's where the belt's going to come through. So you want to see the eyebrows of the angry eyes. We said M3 by 12 button head cap. Once again, linear rail facing down, idlers on the inside edge, pushed flush with the edge of the rail. And you can do that either by feel, using a 1, 2, 3 block, or what have you. And then I'm going to go ahead and lock one of them down. I'm not going to lock them both down just yet, because we will have to take this off once we route the belt. So the other side, we're going to flip over, and we'll do the same thing. We'll take our idler, flip it on there once again with the idler pulley facing inside, right? So we want them facing the opposite direction. Put in a couple of our M3 nuts in here. Those in position. We'll grab another one of our faces. Once again, the mouth of our face faces outward, and we see our little eyebrows, which are kind of hard to see because they were printed, eyebrow down on a textured surface. So you'll just have to take my word for it that there are eyebrows there. Screw them down until they start to snug up, which tells us that our screws are threaded into the nut, and then bring it nice and flush with the front of our extrusion. And just tighten down the front edge so it doesn't go anywhere. Now on the rear side, we're going to start installing our back edges for our motors. So we're going to take our A motor, the one on the right. We're going to take our right side, so the idler is facing to the left and when our linear rail is underneath, and that's going to be the right side of our gantry that will slide in. We'll need 2 screws and 2 more M3 by 12, 2 more M3 hex nuts and 2 M3 12 screws. Slide those in there. Get those aligned here in a second. Try and get this flushed up. Get our nuts aligned. And once again, another angry eyes idler with the mouth facing the outside. That on there gently. Bolts in. Come down. This one does not feel like it lined up right, so there we go. So once again, same deal. Tighten them down, back them off, line it nice and flush, and we'll tighten down the edge one. And there's our A motor. Do the same thing on the other side for our B motor. Hey, local maker, how's it going? Put this in there. Another one of our angry idlers, or I say angry idlers, but our little smiley eyebrow face thing, or belt clamps, and some M312s. All I'm going to do is tighten these down a little bit. Hopefully they've caught these nuts. I can feel them snug up. If they don't, then that means that my nuts wandered and I get to start all over again. As both of them did. And unfortunately, this gets a little bit difficult just because of the motors being on the end there. It, there's no real easy way of keeping the slope from being a factor. You just kind of have to work to get things lined up and hope it doesn't slide as you jostle things a bit. Or you try and hold it level, one of the two. Make sure the edge is flush. And like I said, I'm only locking down the rearmost one right now. I'll leave the front one undone for now just because uh, we're going to have to take these back off to put the belts on anyhow, so it just makes sense. And folks, give me 1 second. I'm going to mute myself. I need to blow my nose real fast. Okay, I'm back. Thank you, everybody. Time to see if I got the settings right for print by object. I hope so. I hope so. Okay, so we have our sides done, our gantries done now, and the next up is what? It says Clicky Probe. We're not going to install Clicky Probe. We're going to do Boop. So we won't install Clicky. There's a lot of different parts that go in that Clicky Probe. So it looks like we'll have one back piece, or where that piece would be at. So not there. All the electronic stuff. And we'll have um the Z or yeah, the Z chain guide. Hey, look what I found. Got the other two guide rails that I was looking for. Um, and it looks like the cable chain piece. That's all panels. This is all skirts and stuff. Yeah, I think that's the one that'll work with the, I think this is the one that works with the um, cable chain. And double check the cable chain that they sent me. That'll work with the cable chain. So I'll have to put in a couple of heat set inserts into this, and then we'll mount this. So we'll need to mount these two things on the back plate. And like I said, I am not intending on installing Clicky, and I do not believe I printed out any parts for Clicky either. So these couple of parts that you see here for Clicky, I'm pretty sure I don't have those even printed. So let's bring our heat set machine up here. We'll add a couple of heat sets into this before we get too far gone here. Okay, so these will be M3 by 8 and some M3 hex nuts will be used to install those on the rear extrusion, which is our smallest extrusion. So we'll need 3 hex nuts, 2 M3 by 8. Okay, Westry. Okay, get this here and take the M3 by 8. Nut on it. And I think we'll pretty much figure out the proper distance at another time. We're just going to get them lined up and installed right now. There we go. So we've got um, the cable train guide, and then it'll come around and loop in and screw right in there. Now mount in the back. And once again, not fully tighten any of the bolts. So we're going to need 4 nuts in the top and 4 in the bottom so that we can get our screws in place. So we're there. And okay, so our inner pieces will be these two pieces that we just added will be on the inside. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put this in place. Try to get it in there. Try it open a little bit. Move a couple of these down and we'll get the first two started. These are M3 by 10 screws, not M3 by 8. Which will be interesting because there's no M3 by 10s in this box. And for why M3 by 8s wouldn't fit. Probably M3 by 8s. Yeah, M3 by 8 just aren't really thick enough to get down in there and bite. But like I said, I don't have M3 by 10s in this kit. So we'll grab M3 by 10s from a different kit. Bear with me one moment to see if I've got any M3 by 10 button head. Any silver M3 by 10 button. I don't think these, I think those are 6s. So we'll have to use some M3 by 10 black most likely out of my other kit here. It's again, I get them started and then I back them off. That way everything is still going to be a little loose and pliable. Thanks for alert, Daddy Wazzy. Have fun at work. Got that side done, and we'll do the other side, and then we'll come back in and do the top portions. So we didn't get our um, cable jammed up there. Okay, so we've got the 4 top pieces done. Now we're just going to flip this over, and we're going to do the same thing for the bottom pieces. Wire out of the way there. And once again, everything at this point is still fairly loose. We're just we're snugging it and then rolling it back some so that it's loose enough that we can move things easily. And we'll do that to derack the gantry and make sure that everything's nice and square here in a little bit. Always the funnest part of this build is getting the gantry deracked. At least when you're building a trident or a salad fork, the gantry is built as part of the frame because that doesn't move, and the bed is kinematic, so once you get it close, you're golden. Okay. Now that's installed and loose. And it wants us to install our x-axis. So we can do this while we're upside down like this. It'll be the easiest way to be able to get to our screw heads. So our MGN 9C rail or 9H rail, whichever one, I think it's an H rail, needs to be facing towards the open edge away from the rear of the gantry. So we'll just take this and set it right down on top of those 2 trucks. And we will line this up and screw it into the trucks using M2x12 socket head cap screws. We'll move these back down here out of the way. M2x socket head cap screws. For these, you'll use your 1.5 millimeter, and we're just going to try and line it up and get one started. One's in. Then we'll do a crossing pattern. And I don't want these fully ugga-dugga down. I just want them started and loose. You just saw me move this edge in, so I'll have to make everything nice and even, but we had too much spacing there, so I couldn't get these to line up right. That's why you're trying to get all 4 of them in on each side and make sure that they're still a little loose so you have some flexibility. Everything needs to be movable still at this point. Talks about getting the X carriage, which I am not going to install that particular X carriage. It talks about belting. Belt everything. Install your mini afterburner. Then install your Z belt. Hang it. Not showing the tool head and just showing all belts. Now you wouldn't want to run your belt until your gantry is hung and deracked. Because right now everything's loose. So if I pull my belts tight at all, I'm going to rack the heck out of this frame. And it hasn't told me to actually do anything yet. So here's where we're kind of sort of going to deviate a bit in the sense of we're going to hang this in the printer first. Then we will run belts and then we'll run the Z belt. Yeah, we'll kind of follow a 2.4 plan for this. But what I want to do is I think we're going to call it a stream at this point. And I'm going to look at our 2.4 instructions and get a game plan going for the next stream. So that next stream we can start actually hanging our gantry and getting stuff mounted and belted up. So the next stream is really going to start dealing with belting this. And yeah, we chose to go with some additional F623 bearings than what they had in the kit and not use the 2GT M3 style tooth bearings, tooth idlers, because these just have a tendency to explode. So we're not going to use those. I use the rest of my own 623 bearings because, well, like I said, I think I bought the flanged 623 bearings twice when I was building my trad rack when I just needed standard 623 bearings, aka non-flanged. So for here, we've got this. We will work on getting this put in place because right now, yes, doing this back isn't evenly spaced. So we'll want to have even spacing on the back as we bring this back and make sure that we're the same gap on each side. Then we can do things like lock some of these other screws in with the right gap for the back, is what I'm going to do right now. We basically use the X rail to set this gap. And I'm just locking the bottom in right now because I'm trying to keep this from being too floppy. And like I said, we will work on installing this and mounting it in the printer, um, following the Voron 2.4 guide, mounting this, or at least the order. Roll it through this. Yeah, so you get the gantry, you mount your X. Everything is still quasi loose. So these are the two places where it uses idler bearings on the um, 2.4 and Trident builds is right here on the X gantry, because that's where it's going to be the teeth versus the back of the belt. So that might be something I do here is, now that I got them like this, I may take, yeah, I'll probably pull these front two out and replace them with the tooth idlers just for these front two. Because once again, back of the belt, teeth of the belt are going to be right here on these 2 points and at the back idlers. Everywhere else, it's a backside of a belt. So these need to be toothed. And that makes sense then, because I've got 6 of these. These 2 are toothed, and we did bearing stacks in these, but they should probably be toothed on the Z idlers, shouldn't they? Yeah, so that's the difference in the guide, because the guide was telling me, all right, I need to make some adjustments off stream then, and we'll fix them. We'll fix those. That's why we ran out of bearings, because the Micron guide was telling me to use smooth bearing stacks, right? That's a bearing stack. It's not a tooth idler. Take the F623 bearing stack and put it between there. So it told me to do a bearing stack, but that's going to have belt teeth. Normally you want a tooth idler if you're putting belt teeth against it, and a bearing stack when you're using the flat side of the belt. So I may go in and replace these with the tooth idlers and then replace those, the 2 on the X gantry, with the tooth idlers as well. And that will cover up the shortfall. So that's it. There's issues with the manual and what gets put where. I will fix that off stream so that when we come back Thursday, we can start mounting this within the printer. I thank you all for being here. Thank you for the resubscribe, Westery One, and the gifted sub to Royal Nomi. I appreciate that. I did see that Big Jano is now live. So I think we're going to raid out to Big Jano because he believe he may be doing marble racing. Right? See what he is up to. He's talking about weather and the fact that he moved up north and now the weather sucks. Um, but let's go on over to Big Jano, and I guess it would help if I put my smiling face up on screen for y'all. So once again, thank you all for being here. Come back and see me Thursday. We'll continue the Micron build. I will go ahead and swap those bearing stacks for the tooth idlers in the places that it should have tooth idlers after looking at the way the 2.4 itself is built. And that way that will be squared away and ready for the next stream so that we can continue with hanging our gantry. Then we can derack the gantry, get everything tightened up, and start belting everything. So thank you all very much for being here. I really appreciate it. Follow me as we go right over to Big Jano, and I will see you all on Thursday. And I'll probably see you over in Jano's for some marble racing. So thanks everybody for being here again, and we'll see you in. Bye now.